Hey everyone, welcome to 2.2 and here are all the examples. Now that you have all the formulas, let's use them to solve these problems. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of examples here, that way you can use what you need to in order to get all these problems correct. So first, let's look at the power rule. If you don't remember the power rule, it's right down below me, right down there. Okay, so that means if I have f of x equals x cubed, that means I'm going to take this number, put it in front, and then the x1 is going to go down one value. So we say f prime of x is going to equal 3x squared. There you go. There's the first one. This next one, cube root of x. We can't really write that one like that, so what we're going to do, well, you can write it like that. What you can't do is you can't really do much with it, so if you rewrite it into a form that looks like this down here, then you're going to be able to do okay. So we're going to rewrite this as x to the 1/3 power. Okay, so when it's x to the 1/3 power, you are going to be able to subtract 1. So this goes down to 1/3, it goes in front, right, x, and then 1/3 minus 1 should be negative 2/3, just like that. Okay, so we can write it as, you can write it like this. You could also write it as, because it's a negative exponent, we could write it as 1/3 x to the positive 2/3. Alright, so positive 2/3. Sorry if it's a little bit small. See, it's 1/3 because the negative exponent means it goes in the denominator. The 3 stays in the denominator, 1 goes in the numerator, x goes down there. Okay, good. So now let's try x to the, or y equals 1/x to the 1, I'll get this right. Y equals 1/x squared. And also maybe I should write this one out as, just to make sure that I got this, this should be g prime of x equals 1/3x to the 2/3. Okay, so that way I have g prime. Alright, sorry. So now this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to rewrite it. And a lot of these you want to rewrite first in this form that looks like this down here again, right? That little thing. So we have, this is going to be the same as x to the negative 2. Alright, this is a little blurry, out of focus. Let's try to clean it up. Alright, there it is. So now we can say y prime is going to equal negative 2x to the negative 3rd. Alright, we could write it like that, or we could also write it as y prime equals negative 2/x cubed. Okay, either one of these will be okay. It all depends on what they're looking for, so that way you can write it multiple ways. So there's the first one. Okay, here's example 2. Find the slope, aka derivative, of f of x equals x to the 4th, when x is negative 1, 0, and 1. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say find f prime of x, and then we'll plug in those numbers. F prime of x is going to equal, this number goes in front, 4x, and then take it down a power, so 4x cubed. Okay. So now what I want to do is, if I want to differentiate this function at those points, all I have to do is plug in negative 1, 0, and 1. Alright, so if I plug in negative 1, negative 1 cubed, negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1 times 4. So f prime of x, x of negative 1 is going to equal negative 4. F prime of 0 is going to equal 0 times 0 times 0 times 4 is 0, and f prime of 1 is going to equal 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 times 1, or times 4 is going to be 4. So we've got negative 4, 0, and 4, which hopefully makes sense, because if we just have this whole thing, you know that at 0 it's going to be, it's kind of where the graph is going back up, right? So that means 0, that should be our slope right at 0, which we found out it is. Okay, good. Last example for the power rule. Find the equation of the tangent line to the graph of f of x equals x squared when x equals negative 2. So there's a couple of things we need to do. We want to find the equation, so we probably need something like y equals mx plus b. Now, the good news is that we should be able to know what m is. That's the slope, which is the derivative of our original function. So we can say m is going to equal f prime of x is going to equal 2x to the 1st. I just wrote that 1 in there. Do you have to write the 1 in? No, of course not. It's just there to remind you that this number goes down 1 power for the exponent. Okay, so I know that my slope is going to be 2x. So I know my slope is going to be equal f prime of negative 2, which is going to be 2 times negative 2. So that slope is going to equal 4. So I know that it's going to be y equals 4x plus b. Okay, so now I've got that part. What I have to do is now find b. Okay, there's a couple of things I could do. If I know what x is negative 2, could I also plug it in to figure out what y is? Sure. So if I plug in negative 2 for our original function, that way I can find my coordinate of what we're trying to do here. Negative 2 squared is positive 4, so I'm really looking at the point 2, comma 4 from our original function. So I could also do y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. I could write it in point slope form, distribute the 4, add the 4 to this 4 to the other side, and I get y equals, it's going to be 4x minus 8 plus 4 is going to be minus 4. And that should be your equation right here. Alright, so there you go. That is the power function. And now let's go on to the constant multiple rule. Really, this is just being able to get rid of just some constants and then be able to multiply them in at the end. So if we have y equals 2, 1 over x, really it's just 2 over x, but we can kind of split it up. We could rewrite this as 2 times 1 over x, which we could again rewrite as 2 times x to the negative first. Okay, so now what we can do is we can just say that's going to be f prime of x is going to equal 2, and then we're going to do times x to the negative 1. So we're going to be able to just do this whole thing. That 2 could also go out in front. That means that way we don't have to worry about that 2 doing anything. So really I'm just going to do x to the negative first is really going to be negative 1 x to the negative second, and then make sure we will multiply that all by 2, right? So we can rewrite that as negative 2, and then we have 1 over x squared, where the x is now in the denominator, which we can now rewrite as, let's just do f prime of x is going to equal that, which is going to equal negative 2 over x squared. Okay, so that 2 just kind of stays there. It hangs out. It doesn't, we're not going to find the derivative of that 2. It just goes out in front. So it's like we can factor it out. So just like this, we could factor out the 4/5, and that's going to be 4/5 t squared. Okay, so now if we want to say, let's do it in a different color, because now I'm starting to run some things together. So we can say that this one is going to equal f prime of x is going to equal 4/5. The 2 goes in front times 2t to the first, right? And now we can just kind of clean that up. 4 times 2 is going to be 8, so we can say that's 8t over 5. Okay, so we've got 8t over 5 as our answer for f prime of x. Maybe I put some boxes around them a little bit. It'd be a little bit easier for you to see. So f prime equals negative 2 over x squared. F prime equals 8t over 5. Now, let's keep going. 2 to the square root, not to the, 2 square root of x. So I can rewrite that as 2x to the 1/2, and now I can use the power rule, right? So we can say, I'll go over here, f prime of x is going to equal 2. I'm going to put the 1/2 in front, x, excuse me, and 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. So we can rewrite that as the 2 and the 1/2 should cancel out, so that should be 1 over x to the 1/2. Ooh, that's really hard to see with that marker, and it's kind of way over there in the corner. 1 over x to the 1/2. Okay, there's the next one. Now let's say this one. This is 1 over 2, the cube root of x squared. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say this is the same as 1/2, and then we have x, cube root x squared is going to be x to the negative 2/3 power. Negative because it's in the denominator, 2/3 because 2 is the exponent, 3 is the index number. Alright, so then we can say f prime, I forgot to change markers, let's try this. We can say f prime of x is going to equal, I've got that 1/2, and I've got the negative 2/3 now goes in front, and negative 2/3 minus 1 is negative 1 2/3, which is really negative 5 2/3. No, negative 5/3. Sorry, negative 5/3. Alright, so now we just have to multiply this and clean it up, okay? So we got 1/2 times negative 2/3 is going to be, the 2's cancel out, negative 1/3. and then the x is going to go in the denominator, x to the positive 5/3. Let's just leave it like that, so it's negative 1 over 3x to the 5/3. Let's skip this one, we don't really need to do it, and we're going to move on to sum and difference rules.